What's up YouTube? Welcome to today's second video where I'm going to go over the 3.20 patch notes. Now the 3.20 patch notes were released right after the reveal, and it kind of took a little bit of the wind out of the sails for a lot of people. A lot of people looked at the reveal, thought the league kind of looked really cool, really interesting, and really amazing. But then they saw the patch notes. Now I do know that a lot of people have already read some of the patch notes, so I'm gonna do this video in an interesting format where I'm just gonna go over 10 things I liked about it and 10 things I hated about it, because it's a lot of the same stuff. They have the Eldritch Altar Manifesto stuff, the Arch Nemesis Manifesto, they also have the Jewel Manifesto, and they also have the Curse Manifesto. And outside of those core changes, there's not really much that actually got changed by the manifesto. And that's where the problem lies. Now, many people were expecting a huge skill rebalance. They were expecting a lot of buffs to underused skills. Now, we might have all been just deluding ourselves full on copium, but that is what was implied after Sentinel League. If you remember, during Sentinel League, GGG kind of promised us that there were going to be big balance shifts later on, and they were going to test out a league with no balance changes at all and zero skill tuning. Now, the patch did include a number of pretty heavy nerfs to very popular skills, and also nerfed two of the most popular ascendancies, Inquisitor and Occultist. And most people on Reddit are pretty perplexed about the lack of buffs to underused skills and ascendancies. So here you can see this meme. We have nerfed OP skills to change the meta. Cool, but what skills did you buff? And the answer is absolutely nothing. And then here's the answer me turtle. And then this is another post that was pretty much the #1 Reddit topic for a while. How can we have gotten no skill or ascendancy changes? The lead up to today and even during the content reveal has been amazing. And I do think that this is a sentiment shared by a lot of the community. A lot of people like the roguelike dungeon if GGG can pull it off correctly. So good on-point change after change, especially with the removal of Arch Nemesis. So these people are kind of defeated about what actually got changed. So let's go straight into the top 10 positive changes that GGG actually managed to pull off. So first off, you have the new unique chase weapons buff. This includes Aziri's Disfavor, this includes Divinaria, Starforge, Voidforge, everything's buff. But they're all T0 rarity now, so they're around a Mage Blood or Headhunter rarity level, so it's going to be extremely rare. But it will be very nice to see a lot of builds recommending uniques, and I'm not really sure how expensive these uniques will be, because take for instance Starforge. I think Starforge comes out to like a 740 PDPS two-handed sword, and that's just not really good enough to beat out like a 1200 or 1100 PDPS sword. But it all depends on the cost of these unique items. Now, Fracturing Orb is something I really liked. It made Harbinger relevant again. You can pretty much go into Harbinger. You can kind of farm a shard that's actually worth something. If people don't remember, lastly, we had the Divine and Exalted Orb change, and that kind of made Harbinger irrelevant because you were only getting Exalted shards, which was worth almost nothing compared to before. So Fracturing Orbs and Fracturing Shards will make Harbinger a good thing to put on your map again. Now, the new Atlas tree clusters look pretty amazing. They give you a lot more customization, and not to mention, they also give you an increased spawn chance of getting the league mechanic that you want. So the new Atlas tree clusters, we don't really know exactly what the nodes are currently, but we do know that they're going to make your farming and your specific farming strategy a lot better. Maybe there'll be some new farming strategies. And this is one of my favorite changes. This is the huge nerf to multi-box cheaters. Now, this is kind of a good and a positive because, as one may know, the cheaters we're actually benefiting from. So if you guys don't know, a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but some people use a third-party program to find out if a beast is in the map, and then they teleport all of their accounts in, and then all of those accounts will be able to get the beast. So you can pretty much find one split beast or one imprint beast, and then you'll get 6 copies of that beast. So what they did was that additional captures of beasts when playing a party are now rolled on a per player basis, with the chance being tied to the quantity. So it's going to be a huge nerf to the bestiary multi-boxer. So if you actually do beast, you're going to benefit from it. But if you're a crafter, it's going to mean that imprint beasts and split beasts are going to be a lot more expensive. Now, they also added some new bestiary recipes, and these look amazing. This is part of the Atlas memories. So now you can take a Watcher's Eye, you can remove a mod and then add a mod. So say you have a double hatred Watcher's Eye with some really bad vitality mod or something like that. You can gamble to remove the vitality mod and try to hit gold and try to hit the hatred mod. And then there's also something else that removes a synthesis modifier and replaces it. So it's the same deal. And then there's also one that switches around the awakened skill gems. Now, another positive change is the new skills they added that look very, very cool. Frozen Legion looks amazing. It's a spell. It's not exactly like a main skill that you can spam, but it does show that GGG is trying out different skill designs. As people pointed out, this is the first spell and melee skill. So this is one of the first skills that we had that has a spell and a melee tag attached to it. There's also new Vol skills, and this goes with Vol Venom Gyre, Vol Caustic Arrow. Let's go see in the patch notes what they actually wrote. But they added a bunch of new Vol skill gems. And this is pretty much kind of not like a buff, but it's kind of an indirect buff. Because by adding a Vol skill to a skill gem that has no Vol skill at all, it's pretty much going to buff the skill because you're going to have this extra sync ability. So let's go see Venom Gyre, right? Introduce 8 new Vol skill gems. Vol Cleave, Vol Flicker Strike, Vol Blade Flurry. This could be huge. Vol Venom Gyre, Vol Molten Strike, Vol Caustic Arrow, Vol Volcanic Fissure, and Vol Smite. So some of these, judging by Vol Cleave, it's actually a huge buff. So what Vol Cleave actually does is it gives you 60% more damage to enemies on low life. So that's pretty much 30% more damage and 60% increased AoE. And it gives you Culling Strike. So it's probably around somewhere of a 35% damage boost. And Chris did say that you were probably going to be able to keep your Vol Cleave buff up the whole entire time. Now, another positive change they added was that Tainted Orb Refusings have been rebuffed to Scourge values, so that means 6 links everywhere. If they do say that it's going to be around Scourge values, that does mean it's going to be a 50-50 chance, so you pretty much just need to win 2 50-50s from a 4 link on the bench, and then that's a 1 in 4 chance, and then you'll be having a 6 link. And I do think having easy access to 6 links is very, very good for the state of the game. So right here, we've changed the outcome odds for Tainted Orb Refusings to be more favorable to match where they were in Scourge League, and that's super, super good. Now, next up, we have the built-in melee splash on the tree along with the new Totem Mastery. So this pretty much goes hand in hand with them trying to buff melee a little bit. So right now, there's a problem in that a lot of skills, you have to use melee splash for strike skills in order to get any sort of AoE. So if you use dual strike or you use double strike or heavy strike or glacial hammer, you don't really have any area of effect unless you use melee splash. Now, when you use melee splash, you're pretty much foregoing a better support gem that has a more damage multiplier, and it's not exactly the best support gem. So now they pretty much have the melee splash thing on the skill tree as part of the Tribal Fury notable passive skill. I think this is a strike mastery. Now, they did move over the strike skills target one additional nearby enemy into the attack mastery, but they did remove this thing, which is strike skills target additional enemy can do so from 30% further away. And this is actually a huge nerf to certain builds like Bone Shatter, supposedly. So it's kind of like a good and bad thing. And then the Totem Mastery. And this part is not really all good. Like, a lot of melee builds do not really have the points to spare to take a totem node, so you might take Panopticon. But basically, this is kind of something that's saying, like, if you put down your totem, you'll get the buff for 3 seconds, even if your totem instantly dies, which is a pretty big deal. Especially if you're doing bossing. If you've ever done Uber Outer, you will understand that as soon as you put down a totem, it's sometimes like instantly dead. Now, lastly, my favorite change from these patch notes is that they added a set of unique jewels that are powerful chase items. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, to make jewel drop special, we've designed a new set of unique jewels that are powerful chase items that you can drop from the core pool. So they're trying to make unique jewels feel really good whenever you drop it. Now, the nice part about this is that a lot of builds are built upon unique jewels. For instance, Impossible Escape adds so many different options. Watcher's Eyes. There's just so many unique jewels that can be build enabling, and I'm really, really excited to see what they have in store for us. Now, these are the positive changes. Now we're going to go into the negative changes that I really disliked. Well, not really negative changes, but negative aspects of the patch notes. And number one is definitely too many nerfs without buffs to compensate, resulting in a similar and narrower meta. So as you may know, a lot of the patch notes have a lot of nerfs to some of the most powerful leveling skills and builds in the game, most notably Spectral Helix and Lightning Conduit. So they pretty much destroyed the damage effectiveness of the skill on Spectral Helix. Lightning Conduit lost a lot of base damage on his skill gem, and it also got its damage effectiveness cut by like 33%. So these two skills are too strong, and I do admit that they're too strong, and GGG are trying to tone it down all the way down. And then Lightning Strike, they're doing an interesting nerf to Lightning Strike where they're kind of reducing the amount of projectiles that you have. So now instead of 7 projectiles at level 20, you have 2, and I'm assuming the quality gives you 2 additional projectiles, so it's 4. So you're going to lose a lot of projectiles. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but the bigger deal for Lightning Strike is the Withering Step and Elusive buff. So right now, you can use Withering Step to remove your Elusive buff, and that allows you to reapply a max level Elusive. Now, this is going to be around a 25 to 30% damage nerf for most builds that do use Elusive and Nightblade. Now, the problem with this is that there's some skills that were not nerfed at all. Righteous Fire was probably one of the most meta builds. When Seismic Trap is known as one of the best bossers in SSF Hardcore, and the only reason why people didn't play Seismic Trap last league was because people thought it was over nerfed. However, judging by the performance of Seismic Trap in these events in Hardcore SSF, we do know that Seismic Trap is as strong as ever, and a lot of these builds are actually just straight up buffed. For instance, Righteous Fire with Fire Trap is kind of buffed with the Curse effect being better on Pinnacle bosses, and the same can be said for Seismic Trap that benefits from Temporal Chains now. And they also have a bug fix even in the patch notes that makes Seismic Trap even stronger, because they made it so that everyone who does Seismic Trap takes this mastery that makes poison deal damage faster. However, the thing was bugged in that it actually reduced your duration by 2 times, so a double dip. So this is going to result in around 20% more poison duration or damage for poison builds. So overall, really, really bad meta because they nerfed the top skills. They didn't nerf some of them, so some of the skills are still really overpowered. And this really just narrows the meta at the top end, and it just removes some of the builds that some people are actually able to play. Now, another change or lack of change is it's still going to be a Magic Find meta, but the reward mods are now hidden. So what that means is that instead of being FOMO that you didn't call in a Magic Find color, I think now you're just going to be FOMO that you're not playing a Magic Find build in wave you're mapping. Because if you see this stack of Chaos on the ground that drops randomly, you'll know, oh, if I've had a Magic Find character or I had a lot of rarity on my character, I could have gotten some Divines. Now, next up is one of the biggest concerns for me coming into the league is that the league mechanic has to be rewarding or people will just ignore it. However, everyone will have to give the league mechanic a shot because the Sanctified Relic that grants you permanent character power is just too strong for people to ignore. But after people get their Sanctified Relic, I could see people just skipping the league mechanic if it's not rewarding enough. Now, another thing that is not really addressed in these patch notes is that there's no real addressing of the crafting issue, at least in softcore trade. You don't see any way of having Reforged Key prefix and suffix. When Chris was asked about it, he said that they did not add it back into the game. So it's not some hidden recipe or some hidden orb we can get somewhere. And the best thing that they could have done was they did add the Fracturing Orb, but that was already existing with the Harvest. It's just got moved from the Harvest over to Harbinger. Now, this change I really dislike. Now, if I did mention that they had new Atlas Tree clusters, but in making the new Atlas Tree, they actually removed some of the boss nodes. So there's no more Height of Hubris. There's no more you spawn an extra Shaper Guardian and it has a 33% chance to drop a fragment. So this is just a removal of probably one of the a lot of people's favorite way of farming currency, which is running the Shaper Guardian maps or Elder Guardian maps or Elder Slayer maps, and then running the Invitation, making it super hard on yourself and being rewarded with sometimes up to almost like 2 Maven's Writs. Now that was really, really fun to do because it actually challenged your character. You were able to opt into difficulty and be rewarded for it. So it's very, very strange why they would try to choose to remove it. And the way they explained it was that they wanted to make us not have to worry about speccing into nodes for specific content, but that's literally the point of the Atlas passive tree. Now, this is another thing that ties into the first change is that there's no Seismic Trap nerf. So it's pretty much RIP to all hardcore bossing events. Currently, if you're doing a hardcore bossing event like the Gauntlet, you will pretty much just need to ban Seismic Trap because it's literally just that OP at the moment. Now, this is an out-of-the-map league mechanic. And the way that they framed it was that you can do up to like 8 maps. You can save it up and then you can run a full floor of the Sanctum. Now, what this means is that our map is going to have no extra monsters in it. So you can pretty much think of the Sanctum as a vault side area that you enter, and then you can kind of interact with this map device, and then you have to go outside of the map, and I don't think it gets scaled by your map at all, the Sanctum. So this pretty much means that any juicing strategies regarding the map will be that much less effective because we are in another league without any sort of league mechanic whatsoever for our mapping experience. And they also ended up nerfing the Eldritch Altars, which is a huge portion of loot, at least for softcore trade, in terms of what you get from maps. Now, another thing I really disliked from the patch notes was that they removed a bunch of unique jewels that were kind of not really build enabling, but very, very fun to build around. You have Mantra of Flames, which was super strong for any builds that were stacking a lot of buffs. For instance, Bone Shatter, to try to get a lot of damage from the flat fire damage. You have Survival Secrets, which was actually necessary for Ward Loop to function. And it's kind of sad to see War Loop just get completely destroyed and gutted because of this Jewel Manifesto change. Now, next up is a change that a lot of people haven't really caught on to or started complaining about. And this is pretty much the Withering Step change. Now, this thing, so having Elusive is now actively bad for poison builds. So the way that GGG did the Withering Step nerf is really, really bad, because they made it so that Withering Step cannot be used while already elusive. Now, the problem with Withering Step is that you are using it to reset elusive. So the way that they can nerf it properly is that they should make it so that Withering Step makes it so you can't remove elusive, instead of making it so you can't use Withering Step at all, because there are a lot of builds that have sources of elusive, but they aren't trying to refresh elusive. And the OP part is refreshing elusive, and you're pretty much punishing a lot of assassin poison builds for the collateral damage of Nightblade Helix or something, Nightblade Lightning Strike for being OP. So I do hope that they try to change that Withering Step nerf, because I do think that it was kind of under or overlooked. Now, another negative change is that there's going to be no more easy leveling with Spectral Helix and Lightning Conduit, and I do know a lot of people kind of enjoy a smooth leveling experience, myself included. It's really easy to just recommend people to play Spectral Helix or play Lightning Conduit, but now we're pretty much just going to be playing the next tier down of skills, which is Shattering Steel, Bone Shatter, and more Armageddon brand Cremation. And this is pretty much just more of the same old without buffing any new skills. We can't really level with any new skills, and it's kind of sad to see that Lightning Conduit has such a short time under the sun, because it literally just got completely gutted. Now, overall, I do think the patch notes are a little bit light on balance changes. Most of the stuff that was introduced and that was new, we already knew about, pretty much because of all of the balance manifestos. And I want to state, by nerfing certain OP skills and leaving other ones not nerfed, this has led to a meta that's less diverse at the top end. So at the top end, instead of having Righteous Fire, Lightning Strike, Cold Dot, Seismic, Bone Shatter, and a bunch of other skills, now we're only going to have a certain amount of skills left at the top. And I do think the 3 top builds are probably going to be Righteous Fire, Seismic Trap, and Cold Dot. Now, the Elusive nerf, a lot of people are wondering, is it going to make Venom Gyre not playable? Elusive nerf is around a 25 to 30% damage nerf for most builds using Nightblade. Now, Vol Venom Gyre can bridge that gap a little bit depending on how good the Vol Venom Gyre skill gem is. If it's anything like the Vol Cleave gem, it's actually going to be a buff in terms of damage, or break even at worst. Now, even if the league mechanic is not super well done and it's super rewarding, I do think everyone will have to do it, because these sanctified relics are actually account bound, so you can't actually share it or you can't actually trade it. So you have to do the Forbidden Sanctum in order to get something that will give you direct character power. And this is actually a good thing because it forces you to do the league mechanic. I mean, that's better than nothing, right? So no matter what, in my experience, I will have to do the league mechanic if I want to make my character as powerful as possible. And it is a good thing that they're offering some sort of extra character power for doing a league mechanic, as unrewarding as it may be. But thanks for watching, everyone. Overall, I do think the patch notes, Kind of a letdown after an amazing reveal, but it is what it is. I don't know why they don't buff some of the underused skills and why they don't try to force a new meta like they used to before. But at this point in time, we just have to play with the cards that were dealt, right? So let me know down in the comments below what your league starter will be and what you think about these balance changes or lack thereof. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Sanctified Relics, Divines, Exalts, and Mirrors than me. And see you next time. Bye!